Milton is rapidly intensifying yet again, and it's pretty likely that by the time that you see this video, Milton will be a Category 5 hurricane. Yet again, this was going to be the second time that it's going to be able to get to that status. As we can see pretty easily on satellite here, you don't need to be a meteorologist or a weather expert to look at this storm and be like, yeah, that's going to cause some problems, at least for the fish right now. But I mean, you can see that the eye is starting to clear out here on Milton. If we come over here to visible satellite, you can see that that clears all the way out into the surface of the ocean. You can actually see little parts of the surface of the ocean starting to clear out with Milton. Look at that, and the latest little loop there. You can really see that it's starting to dry up again in there, indicating that the pressure is dropping in the center of Milton right now. In fact, that's exactly what the hurricane hunters are finding in Milton. You can see, we were at around 930 millibars. That was kind of the highest it's gotten really in the last day or so. And then as you can see, as the storm has been slowly intensifying, that eye has been clearing out. We've been seeing colder cloud tops pop up around it. We're starting to see 927, 924 start to pop up. Another little interesting thing to note, this storm is supposed to be going northeast right now, but it's actually traveling a little bit to the east and a little southeast as well. So kind of interesting there. Also, you can see it's also potentially speeding up as that line is a little bit longer there. Most of the times when the plane does its turns and then goes back into the storm, it's around in the same time frame. So you see that extension there of a line that indicates that the storm might be speeding up. So it is, getting some sort of interaction from the frontal boundary here, but so far it hasn't really started its northeastern jog just yet. We were thinking this might be a wobble at first, but now that it's continuing kind of on this east southeast kind of path, it does seem like we're getting a weird meander happen here, and it'll be interesting to see what implications that is going to have down the line. A big news story that just got released here from the National Hurricane Center is that we are literally 2 miles per hour underneath Category 5. Now, the National Hurricane Center is notoriously conservative, and for good reason. They try to, just relay as accurate as information as they can. Sometimes it can be hard to know whether or not, the winds that we're seeing at the surface are actually sustained or just wind gusts. And, they have to kind of make a determination based off of their expert opinion on whether or not this storm is a Category 5 or not. But we're literally just on the cusp of Milton becoming a Category 5 again. You can see 150 mile per hour wind speeds, max wind gusts of 185 miles per hour. Storm movement, it says east northeast. That's not correct. This is moving east a little bit to the south right now. Not really sure why they're holding on to that with all of the data that we've been getting in from the hurricane hunters. But the minimum pressure here is 923 millibars. So we're definitely seeing a drop in pressure, again indicating that Milton is really starting to intensify, and it's also going to rapidly intensify probably for the next couple of hours, and then we should see that level off as it really starts to interact with that boundary, with that shear and dry air that's going to be coming into it. But for the next day or so, we're going to see this kind of hold on to the Category 4 strength all the way into tomorrow morning. And then once we get to right before landfall, around 7 p.m., we're going to hopefully see Milton down at a Category 3. But again, we're still not letting go of that possibility that Milton could still be a Category 4 at this point. And, a lot of that is going to depend on what Milton does here over the next couple of hours, 12 hours or so, and how it interacts with that boundary. Also, with this little south and east jog, it might give it a little bit more time out in front of the boundary to maybe intensify. So all these things we're going to have to watch, a couple of variables there, throwing some flies into the ointment per se, that we're going to have to monitor as this thing starts to, approach the western coast of Florida. But overall, not a whole lot of changes from this latest forecast from the National Hurricane Center. The general thought process is still landfall somewhere between Spring Hill, also over down there north of Tampa, potentially as a Category 3 or kind of a low-end Category 4 hurricane, which is still very powerful and very impactful. We're still seeing those hurricane warnings from Cape Coral all the way up up to Cedar Key, also to Palm Coast, all the way down to Palm Bay. We still have tropical storm warnings all the way from Port St. Lucie down to Key West. We still have tropical storm warnings for Jacksonville down to Gainesville, Live Oak, and Apalachicola. So not a whole lot of changes there. Kind of an interesting thing to note, they are saying that, as this is kind of in between Tampa and Palm Bay, maybe a little bit to the south, maybe a little bit to the north, max wind speeds of about 100 miles per hour there, and max wind gusts of 120 miles per hour. It's going to be very close to areas like Lakeland, Four Corners, and Orlando. So those are some of the kind of wind speeds you should expect out of this storm as it kind of moves over land. Again, if it's going to be a stronger storm at landfall, the winds further inland might get a little bit further to the east if that's the case. Coming over to the National Hurricane Center's page here, giving it a refresh because I'm looking at old data. There we go. And checking out the latest flash flooding potential, still the same. No big changes there for tomorrow. Looking at the rainfall, let's go see that. Yeah, still expecting, anywhere from 12 to 16 inches here in the reds, and then 8 to 12. That's going to be where we're seeing some chances for significant flooding. As far north as Gainesville could see, anywhere from 4 to 8 inches. As far south as just to the south and east of Tampa Bay, could see some issues there in terms of flooding. As further you get to the south than that, not going to really see that flooding pile up too much. Same thing up to the north. So, it's still kind of the same general story as we covered not too long ago with the flooding, but definitely be prepared to make preparations because, again, some of this flooding could be quite extreme as we're going to get a lot of rain falling in a short amount of time. You don't need 30 inches of rain to get big time flooding. It's all about the rainfall rate, not necessarily about how much rain you get, although both of those factors are pretty important. Peak storm surge hasn't really changed too much. Still kind of the same forecast here. 1 to 3 feet to Swanee River, 3 to 5 to Yankeetown, 5 to 10 down to Antelope River. For the Tampa Bay region, all the way down to Inglewood, we're expecting anywhere from 10 to 15 feet of storm surge. Here's a great graphic in understanding storm surge. As you can see, 10 to 15 feet, that's anywhere from, the top of your door, a little bit over the top of your door, all the way up, to almost over your second floor. If you live in a one-story home, that's going to be pretty much at your roof. So again, if you're somewhere along the coast and they're asking you to evacuate, this is why. If you live in a one-story building near the coast, you're going to be completely underwater. Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? Why even stay there in the first place? So please evacuate if you've been told to. Also, a notable thing to talk about here, Ben Knoll on Twitter has pulled up an interesting factoid here about Milton, is that, we're going to be in record territory again for the amount of humidity or water, precipitable water that's going to be in the atmosphere. And that's why we're concerned here about flooding. It's going to be a quick hit, but those rainfall rates are going to be quite intense with this storm. We could see multiple flash flooding warnings or even emergencies happen with this storm, especially on that northern corridor we were just talking about. Please respect this storm as it comes through, as it not just for the winds, not just for the tsunami-like storm surge, but also for that flooding potential. Also, we are getting reports that from reliable sources, and I've kind of checked this out myself. This has heard it from multiple people, but for people that are evacuating to the north of I-75, a lot of people are finding no fuel. Nearly all gas stations haven't been wiped out. That's kind of a weird way to say it, but they have run out of fuel. So just keep that in mind. If you're still in the process of getting ready to evacuate and evacuating, just know that it's going to be hard to get fuel where you are, and it's also going to be hard to get fuel further up to the north. So worst case scenario, just get away from the coast. Go a couple miles inland, camp out in your car, ride the storm. At least, you're not going to get impacted by the most dangerous thing, storm surge. Your chances of survival will be higher if you do that. Another interesting thing that I found online is the hurricane hunters have released a video here of them flying into Milton. This is them in the Milton. As you can see in the hurricane hunter plane, there's a lot of science data here. No, they're not throwing wings out of the plane. You don't see any wings there or any weather manipulation machines. No, all they have is just a bunch of science equipment in there, and actually the ride is quite intense. You can see they're bouncing around here a bunch. There's crazy turbulence once you go into the eye wall of a storm, and then eventually, let me see if I can find it. They come out of the eye wall, and then they enter into the center of the storm. storm. Let's see. I think it was like right here. There you go. And this is a view from the center of Milton. Check this out. This was as it was, not as clear as an eye, but I'm sure the next time they post it, we'll be able to see that stadium effect as the eye is clearing out. But man, really eerie kind of to be inside the eye of this monster storm. And there you heard him say, wow. And yeah, I agree. One thing that's important to do is to monitor, some of these traffic cams to see if we still have any major traffic. It does look like, at the very least, the traffic is calming down here, coming out of Tampa, at least on some of the bridges right now, going out a little bit further to the east along I-75. Let's see if we can find a good camera here. Yeah, it looks like traffic has calmed down there as well. So we are seeing some calming in the traffic. Let me see. Yeah, not a whole lot of traffic there either. Let's go down just a little bit further to the south. See if we can find any traffic down here. Yeah, not a whole lot is happening there. I've been still hearing reports that there have been some traffic in and around in some of these areas today, but it seems like some of that has cleared up. Not as much traffic anymore. I'm just gonna keep on searching. Let's look over here near Brandon. We might have some traffic. Yeah, so there is still some spotty areas with traffic, but at least there is, a semblance of good news is that there are roads that will be less congested than yesterday. So it looks like the main mass exodus has already happened here. But as you can see, I mean, there's still some areas with a lot of traffic. So if you're evacuating, just know, it's going to be, every now and then you're going to be running into some traffic. But, for the most part, things are going to start, to clear up, as a lot of people have already evacuated. I mean, definitely still some traffic here too on I-75, mile marker 254.6 northbound there near Brandon. And yeah, I mean, you can see almost standstill traffic here. Last little thing I want to focus on here is the tornado threat. As you can see, we do have a marginal risk issue down here near Fort Myers and Miami. That is going to be primarily for tornadoes. A 2% chance exists for today, but tomorrow is going to be our main day for tornadoes. You can see we have a slight risk issued over there for Tampa, going towards Melbourne, Orlando, Fort Myers, and Miami. Also, just to the south of Jacksonville, we have a marginal risk there for tornadoes as well. And that's mainly, a tornado risk. We're not really expecting anything else but tornadoes during this day. And also, obviously, a hurricane making landfall somewhere in between, Sarasota and Spring Hill. But yeah, Tampa, Orlando, Melbourne, Fort Myers, and Miami, you guys are all in that 5% risk. And that just pretty much means 5% chance of tornadoes within a 25-mile radius of you. Now, I did say that would be the last thing we're talking about, but I just noticed that we do have some new hurricane models coming in, so I want to look at that. Oh wow, a little bit of an uptick in strength here from the HMON model, 940 millibars. That's a little bit stronger than it was. So yeah, I mean, a little bit stronger of a storm at landfall, at least on one model here, bringing some significant storm surge into Tampa. But I think the worst storm surge would probably be over here near Bradenton and Sarasota, as that wind field really starts to push in. So again, if you're struggling to understand what storm surge is, which is totally understandable, it just in itself doesn't really make much sense. Instead of saying storm surge, just say storm tsunami. Storm tsunami, I feel like, is a better way. People know what tsunamis are. It's a rushing wave of water. That's what's going to happen as this storm makes landfall. So, in the heights of that tsunami, quote unquote, again, it's not an actual tsunami, but it's almost identical to what, it's just a lot slower of a process as it builds up. It's not as sudden as a tsunami is. So if we put the word storm tsunami or storm in front of tsunami, then, we can make a distinction from it. So, if you're getting storm tsunami surge of up to, 10 to 15 feet, it's going to be very much like a storm or like a tsunami. So, get out of the way of that, please. Would you stand there for a regular tsunami? Probably not. Don't do the same thing for Milton. But let's go look at some of these other models and see what they're saying. This is the latest HWRF and also an uptick in intensity. You can see it was at 953 on the last model run at landfall, and now it's a 946. Let's go check the timing here. Yeah, still really early a Thursday morning. So, we're still talking about 12 to 3 a.m. landfall, which is just, adds insult to injury. And also because we're expecting this storm to strengthen into a category 5, again, I think the models are catching on to that, and they might be bumping up the intensity due to the recent organization and the recent plane data that we're getting out of the storm as it rapidly tries to intensify again. The HFAS models coming in still a little bit on the weaker side of things, actually weaker than its last run, which is pretty interesting. So we are starting to get a little bit of disagreement here in between some of these models in terms of landfall intensity. The HFAS has actually gotten weaker, but still bringing significant storm surge into the area. So again, let's not focus on the pressures of the winds too much. Just know that a storm surge tsunami is coming, on the southeastern or the eastern side of this storm, and it's going to push that water in, not super quick like a regular tsunami, but fast enough to cause some pretty significant and catastrophic impacts, even if the storm was this weak, which is still not weak. 963 is still a strong hurricane. It's just weaker than what it would be, say, if it was a category 4. So just keep that in mind. We're still talking about a stronger storm, just not as strong as what some of the other models are saying. Now looking at the HFAS-B, you can see it pretty much has almost the exact same scenario here. Definitely a downgrade in its intensity as well, same as the HFAS-A. So a little bit of a split. Is it going to be a little bit weaker, or is it going to be a little bit stronger? So a little bit of a last moment kind of disagreement here in the models, but overall the impacts are going to be very similar. If this thing relaxes, it's going to be bringing up, it's that wind field is obviously going to be expanding, but it's going to be also capturing a bunch of water with the winds pushing it closer and closer to land. And even if it relaxes in its intensity right before landfall, all that water is still going to be under there, and there's only one place for it to go, into the shore. Last thing we're going to be looking at is surface, and that's promise. This is the actual last thing we're going to be looking at, is the surface winds. And, we're going to be looking at further inland impacts. This is the NAM 3Ks model run, pretty similar in terms of where this thing makes landfall. And as you can see, we're seeing anywhere from 45 to 60 knots pushing into land, and that's going to go all the way through into Cape Canaveral throughout the day on Thursday, early morning Thursday, going into evening on Thursday in the eastern coast. And then you can see, we get those significant winds, or not significant, but tropical storm force wind gusts to 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts all the way from Cape Canaveral all the way up into parts of Georgia and South Carolina, bringing that storm surge on the western or the eastern side of some of the United States coast here. So again, everyone that's in the path of this thing, a little bit to the north, a little bit to the south, and then also on the east coast, all the way to Georgia up to South Carolina, needs to be paying attention to the storm. There's going to be some beach impact. You don't want to be on the beach. There's going to be lots of power outages, potentially catastrophic storm surge, as this is making landfall there near Tampa or Sarasota, Bradenton. Also still some significant to life-threatening storm surge happening in Cape Coral, with also the potential for 50 to 60, maybe even 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts that far south. Again, that wind field's really going to be expanding as it comes into the shore. And, thankfully, we've seen a lot of people evacuate already, but I know that some of you guys are still on the fence. I'd get out, man. I'm a storm chaser myself. I like to see the extremes of Mother Nature. I hate to see the impacts, obviously, but, it's something that I like to look at, as I'm kind of like a gnat to a light. Like they usually end up starving themselves to death looking at a light. I'm kind of the same way, and I wouldn't be in the path of this storm, and you shouldn't either. Because that would scare the crap out of me. So please evacuate out of the area if you're under evacuation orders. And yeah, that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys for watching, and stay safe out there. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button before you leave, and I'll see you guys. I'll probably be live tonight. I might just do video updates today. We'll see. But yeah, I'll try to find a time to go live. I'm a little bit busy right now, but I'm definitely going to be pumping out these updates whenever we have something to report